Are we ready?
Yep.
Okay, let me just get my stuff here. Kat, will you pull the door closed? Thanks. Okay, we're on camera?
Yes.
Okay. Do you want to do the statement of compliance?
Sure. In compliance with the Open Publics Meeting Act, this is a regular scheduled meeting pursuant to the resolution adopted on January 4th, 2021, with a meeting notice published in the Hunterdon County Democrat issue of January 14th, 2021. A copy of the agenda was forwarded to the Hunterdon County Democrat, Times of Trenton, Star Ledger, Courier News, posted on the bulletin board and Township website, and filed in the Township Clerk's office on August 10th, 2021.
Okay, could I have a motion to enter into executive session?
So moved. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, Krista.
Huh?
Sounds like a beer.
Sounds like a beer,
Sounds
that's
like a
right.
bottle of Jack Daniels.
Listen, I wanna make a motion now.
Handle.
We're on.
So it's settled then. Oh, good God.
Frank, do you want this back?
There's Tim Willie?
Audio's back.
Oh, I'm not gonna get the Guinness tonight anyway.
Try to get Guinness in my house, actually.
It has
Hands
to be
Guinness.
creamy and smooth.
I could pour those. Looks like the, 5 or 8 minute pour, you know.
You good?
You know that, like, when you go to Ireland, you just can't drink it. That's 10 minutes on the side.
I told you I went.
Can you just do a consensus to come out of executive session?
Yes.
Like a motion?
Mark's moving to come out of executive?
Yes.
Second.
Okay.
All right.
Those are good dogs, man. Those dogs are good dogs.
What?
Tedeschi's dogs.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right, you forgot.
I can't smuggle them to my house because they'd see them.
Did you see the pictures on Facebook? He had them up in some stream in Vermont.
Yeah, I
And
saw
that
them.
big,
Did they ever get them checked out?
I don't know. But it was,
Yeah.
it's so funny, there's, the cat's just so big.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, it's funny, the other dog is covered, and just his belly is barely covered.
Eric
Like,
Bella
what?
fights back though.
Yeah,
She fights back.
yes. It has to, half the size.
Alright.
Are we ready, Krista?
We're ready.
Okay, let me get myself set up here. Okay. All set?
All set.
All right. Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the August 12th, 2021 meeting of the East Amwell Township Committee. Krista?
Mr. Castellano,
Here.
Mr. Mills,
Here.
Ms. Ramsey. Here. Mr. Sobieski.
Here.
And Mr. Wolf.
Here. Could we all stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, we don't have a lot on the agenda tonight, so we may actually get done pretty quickly. Okay, agenda review. Krista, anything to add?
No.
Okay. Announcements. Tax bills were mailed on Friday, July 30th. The grace period without penalty extends to August 27th, after which time you start to incur an interest penalty. So please try to pay your property taxes by August 27th. The office staff has varied summer hours on Fridays, July 2nd through September 3rd. Check our website for those hours. The East Amwell Township Parks and Rec Committee will have a Friday night in the park on August 20th, which is a week from tomorrow, from 5 p.m. until dusk. There will be live music by the Bad Hombres and food trucks by Taxi Cab Burger and Kona Ice. This is always a nice night, and I encourage people to come out. It's a great way to meet your neighbors and to have a fun evening in the township. And Clawson Park, our DPW, does a great job. It always looks terrific, and it's a nice place to hang out. The Amwell Valley Fire Company will be hosting their annual Cornhole tournament on August 21st from 12 to 6. Krista, is that at the firehouse?
Oh, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
it'll be
sorry.
at the firehouse. The Hunterdon County Utilities Authority will hold an electronic waste collection on Saturday, August 28th from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. at the county complex on Route 12. A number of residents have asked me, are we going to do another electronic waste collection like we did in the spring? And I think the goal is to do another one this spring, along with another shredding day. The Hunterdon County Fair takes place on Wednesday, August 25th through Sunday, August 29th at the fairgrounds here in East Amwell. See the county website for further information. The Hunterdon County Division of Parks and Recreation will be holding a drive-in movie night on September 4th from 7 to 9 p.m. Again, check the county website for details. Our municipal offices will be closed on September 6th, 2021 in observation of Labor Day. We have no ordinances tonight for public hearing or second reading. Before we go to the special discussion, the presentation by our rescue squad, I'm going to put my acknowledgments first, ahead of that. In part because I know I do this quite a bit, but they certainly don't get enough credit for what they do. I'd like to acknowledge our rescue squad, particularly their fundraising efforts. They go above and beyond to try to raise funds so that they can continue to provide their service to the residents of East Amwell at no cost. Part of their fundraising efforts are selling these t-shirts for $20. These are nice t-shirts. So I strongly encourage residents, buy a t-shirt, maybe buy two, to support our rescue squad. I'd also like to thank all the volunteers, and there are many of them, far too many to mention, who are working on our 4-H fair. I am so happy that we are going to have the fair this year. I greatly missed it last year. It's a fun event, and I'm really, really looking forward to it, and I just want to thank all the people who make that fair happen. With that, I would like to invite up Patrick Eckert to give us the monthly update from our rescue squad.
Thank you. So I'm Chief Patrick Eckert from the Amwell Valley Ambulance Corps. We'll have t-shirts at the fair, so you can come visit us at our first aid building. So we do have some sad news. We had an accident with one of our ambulances, and we're not sure if it's totaled yet, but the odds are it probably is going to be totaled, because once you hit the boxes, they're very hard to fix. So for right now, we're going to go down to 2 ambulances. Luckily, we have 3, and then determine how much we need to put aside really to get the 3rd ambulance back up if we decide to go that way. For the fair, though, since we are short an ambulance, we have I reached out to Atlantic Ambulance. So don't be surprised if you see Atlantic Ambulance at the fair Wednesday night, Friday night, and Saturday night from 5 to 11. They are a billing ambulance, so they will be doing all the transports from the fair, and that's how we're paying them. They're going to just take the billing of whatever patients they transport. So if they don't transport anybody in the 3 days, then they don't get any money. But since we don't get a lot of money from the fair, it was a good deal for us. So they were very kind to do that for us. I didn't want to take another volunteer squad and then be short somewhere in the county. So, but we will be relying on Flemington and Lambertville for mutual aid in case something big happens at the fairgrounds. But let's hope it's not. We'll have 2 ambulances there, and we'll still be answering calls into the township. So we just won't be at the fair. 1 ambulance will always be available to answer calls. We did buy, and not to replace an ambulance, but we did buy an EMS cart. It's basically a golf cart that we can put a stretcher on it. So that's very exciting. You'll see that at the fair, and maybe hopefully Friday night at the park if we have it finished, because we just got it and we have to mount a lot of stuff on it. But we're working on it. So that's very exciting, and it can be used for fire calls and other things too, not just for the fair. So we're going to get a trailer for that so we can haul it around. And we're getting really self-efficient. I mean, it's manpower is always going to be a problem, but at least we got enough right now for the fair. Of course, a lot of our kids went to school right before the fair started, but we still have some that aren't, so we should be okay. But just remember that all volunteers are hurting, the fire departments, the squads, so wherever you are, you can always volunteer. If you do join our rescue squad, just so you know, we do have funding through the state for training, and we also give uniforms and things, so you won't be buying anything out of your own pocket. So a lot of people worry about that, like if I become a volunteer, it's going to cost me so much money. It's really just time for training and time for giving back to your community. And I've been doing it for almost 30 years. My wife's been doing it for 30 years, so we've been a lot of changes. Speaking of changes, we made a big change. We've added EpiPens to our ambulances, which now that they make a generic one that's a lot cheaper, we can now afford it, because before EpiPens were so expensive and they expired so fast, it was really hard to do that. So now we bought enough for all our ambulances for the price of like buying 2 or 3 of the other ones. So that's very good. And we also just got CPAP. I don't know if anybody sleeps with CPAP, but there's an emergency procedure if you're having problems breathing that the EMTs can use CPAP now. So we talked to our medical director and we added that to our ambulances too. So we carry aspirin for heart attacks, the EpiPens, the CPAPs, stuff for diabetics, and so we're got as much as everybody else does and above some, because some don't even carry CPAP. So I think it's very important when we go out to some of these areas that are way off the beaten path that we can give the care before we get to the medics or to the hospital. So we worked on that and did a lot of training. So that's very exciting. So if anybody in the community or anybody has any questions, you can always come and see us at the fair. We'll be there the whole time. It is a long standby for us. It's 12 hours a day, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then luckily only until 5 on Sunday. So, and a lot of our volunteers have actually taken vacation time so they could be at the fair to support the community. So I think that's something that so people need to know that people actually have to take time off from their jobs to come out there. So, and anybody have any questions?
Just, is the driver of your ambulance okay?
Yeah, everybody was okay. They were responding back from the hospital for a call, and it just happened to be in Flemington at a bad spot, and someone stopped when they should have just moved over, and they swerved and they hit a rollback instead of hitting a car head on. So they did that to prevent injuries, and luckily nobody was hurt at all, except for the ambulance, which is replaceable. So, and accidents happen. I've been doing this for a long time, and I've had many accidents in an ambulance. The more you drive it, the more you respond, the more chances are. So yes, luckily everybody is okay. And I just want to also everybody to know that we are still wearing our N95 masks on all squad calls. It is a requirement from the state for such close contact in the back of the ambulance. So I know that bothers some people when we walk into their house, but I want to know that's a state mandate, and COVID is still active and alive, so we have to really be cautious. So we take a lot of precautions in cleaning. We bought the UV lights and special ozone machine that really cleans our ambulances and our buildings, and we do it on a regular basis to make sure everybody's safe. And we'll be doing the same thing at the fair for our building, and we'll have a separate area in case we think if anybody has COVID, so nobody will be cross-contaminated. So I know I've missed a lot of the meetings because they were on my same night of my concerts, since I work for Parks. So like always, I'm glad to be here, and if you have any questions, I think the mayor at least has my phone number, probably other people do. You can always get a hold of me. Hey, and come visit us at the fair.
Thank you,
Jay?
Thank you, Patrick.
No
Thanks for all you
problem.
guys do.
So we're gonna head back because I'm still working on the cart.
Good luck.
Oh, thank you. Oh, good. Thank you. And a shirt?
And a shirt. Whale size. Beach whale, but whale size.
All right, so Let's see. Next, we have the approval of the minutes. Could I have a motion to approve the July 8th, 2021 Township Committee minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions, comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Okay. We have no special committee reports?
No.
Standing committee reports, we have two. Updated summer playground report.
Yes, so summer playground, we had a total of 104 participants this year. We almost broke even. We spent $13.02.
Good job, ladies.
So this year was very good. We had a great turnout and basically broke even for. So hopefully next year we'll beat it.
Awesome.
Very nice.
Glad to hear it.
Okay, quarterly reports. What do we have in the quarterly reports?
So they were in the drive.
Yep.
So there was zoning, I caught up on my end, so it was planning board zoning for the first, second, third quarter, right? And then, Allison's has been in there for recycling and, parks. So, I just put them all together for this month, so.
Thank you. Okay, open to the public. Could I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, during the first session, you can discuss any topics you like. We have a 10-minute limit during the first session. Francis?
Well, walking. Hello, Francis Gavigan, 123 Wurtsville Road, Ringgoes, New Jersey. Just wanted to add to your announcements that the East Amwell Museum Historical Society is opening on September 11th. Come hell, high water, or whatever. Unfortunately, we're not near a stream, so it ought to be something that would be very enjoyable. There is an announcement on the website, and we're all busy, or the majority of people are busy. I've had some issues, including Mrs. Wolf, being there to help finish up with the quick collection inventory that's being done graciously by the lady, the intern, that some of you have met and not. So not only do we finally, after more than 25 years, going to know exactly what we have, but we'll know where we have it and what we have it for the quick collection, which is the property of the township. And that can be built on for all the stuff that's been acquired and hopefully to be inventoried in a better fashion by the actual historical society. So that not only do we know what we have, but then it can be a resource for people to investigate, to review. I mean, the whole thanks to Sue Passelt, we have the entire collection of the VIP going back to almost the dawn of time. Now that's a great snapshot of, if you read that, no matter what side of an issue you are, you get a picture of where we have come in the last 30 years. On a private matter, not as a member of the society or anything like that, having seen the hard work of Lauren and what she has done for us on her own dime, I would ask that you might consider something as a gift or some kind of stipend to capture some of the expenses that she's had coming here a couple days a week from New Brunswick and others, in addition to, you know, at least a resolution of thank yous for all of what she has done and has accomplished. She's been very efficient, very thorough, and, you know, for the first time, we are sort of doing a vertical ascent towards being a more useful, historic resource for the community and the locality. I know some of us are also going to be giving something privately, but that's not the township's business. But it, just to let you know that should we have had to hire somebody to do what she's been doing, it would have cost thousands of dollars. She's a professional. She's now going to be working, I think, for Princeton University and all of that other stuff. So thanks to Alexis, you know, who has been supervising her and working with her and all of that, we have gotten a very nice human grant, and I think at least some kind of a thank you would be appropriate, or worth considering. And that's, oh, and as far as, I don't know if they're gone now, where the accident was, I have noticed that when you come down 202 towards the circle that the state improved, they tell people who want to go onto 12 or onto 202 North to stay to the right. And if you've ever gone around that circle, you'll see people stopping in the highway and then cutting off in front of you. I, on the other hand, ignore state advice frequently. And I stay in the left lane. I actually use a turn signal and let people know, not only the ones coming off of 31, but elsewhere, which way I'm going. If it's not the accident that's already happened, there's so many accidents there. So the next time you're talking to DOT, you may want to suggest that they rethink their marking on the lanes. Right to go left is not the sharpest concept, and people in New Jersey and Pennsylvania are not the sharpest ones about what's a circle, you know, or a rotary or any of that. So fortunately, you know, there will be people who will come and then just stop like deer in the headlights, wondering, what do I do? Well, I'm not going to do anything, and they cause wrecks. So hopefully we'll have a good fair. Everybody will stay healthy. And on September 11th, come to the Amwell Museum. And thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to speak? Tim?
Tim Willie, 25 Bird Lane, Hopewell, New Jersey. If I don't say this every time I come up here to speak, lady and gentlemen of the Township Committee, thank you for your time and service. What you do for your community is outstanding. And after becoming chair of the planning board, I'm starting to think maybe my Air Force service was a little easier, okay? But I understand what y'all go through. Last year, the planning board, after New Jersey voters voted to approve marijuana, we started a subcommittee to investigate whether any of that would fit into our township plan. And we decided that it possibly would. And so we recommended to the mayor at the planning board and to bring back to you folks all that we thought that micro dispensary might fit into our plan. And it might relieve some tax bearing on people, on taxpayers. It might generate income that our DPW could greatly use to, you know, fund trucks, whatever. And we spent a lot of time on it. We did a lot of research and everything else. And you know, we don't reach out to the public, but nobody ever complained about anything. I mean, we were on Zoom. People were following us on Zoom. They heard me speak. They heard other people speak that were on the committee. A postcard went out to the residents about a special meeting, and the biggest paragraph in there has nothing to do with what the planning board recommended. It says, oh, we're going to express their view whether, in order to generate tax revenue to the township for other reasons, should allow within the township facilities that grow, process, distribute, or make retail sales of marijuana. We didn't propose any of that to y'all. We proposed one micro dispensary, and that's it. None of this other stuff should even be on this postcard. You're giving misinformation to the residents. You're stirring up negative vibes, because everybody knows, if they followed what we talked about at the meetings, they know that we didn't want a grower here because they produce a lot of stink, they use a ton of water and a ton of electricity, and they don't fit into what we thought was our plan. And that's why we didn't recommend it. So I don't understand why this postcard went out to everybody with all this misinformation in here. And I'm very disappointed in it, because I think it's leading us down the wrong road, and I think you're gonna generate a lot of negativity from the township residents, because they don't know what we're proposing. And if maybe you said on here that we were gonna reduce their property taxes and be able to buy a new truck without going into the capital expenses, maybe if you put that in there instead of, facilities that grow, that's not what the planning board recommended to you. It's not anywhere close. It doesn't even say in here a micro dispensary. That's all that we recommended, was a micro dispensary. How about if we put the definition of a micro dispensary in here for the people to know what a micro dispensary is? I've explained it several times to y'all. I know you've all heard me say it. 2,500 square feet, blah, blah, blah. That's a big difference from all this information that went out to the township residents. And I'm disappointed in it, because I think we're losing our market share. Now we have West Amwell jumping on board. I don't know what Raritan's doing. I haven't researched Raritan, but from what I see on West Amwell, they're getting ready to pull the trigger on all kinds of stuff, and we're losing our market share. And I think it's going to disappoint a lot of residents. But like I said at the planning board, 2/3 of our residents that voted on that question voted yes. 2/3 versus 1/3. Okay. That's, to me, a majority. That's a landslide. If that was a presidential election, that would be a landslide, okay? So I'm just very disappointed in this postcard. I think you misinformed our residents, and I'm disappointed in that. Thank you for your time.
Anyone else from the public like to speak? Kathy?
Kathy Wolf, 21 Rhine-Nerson Road. So I wanted to give the residents who maybe weren't following the budget discussion and the final vote my perspective from someone who's sitting back there in the audience on what happened. And if you want to hear it for yourself to the residents, please watch the May Township Committee meeting on YouTube. I encourage you to do so. So the budget was introduced in April with a 2.37 tax increase, which was $18 a year for the average resident, which no one on the Township Committee wanted. The increase in taxes was due to a reduction in the revenue due to COVID, and those who worked on the budget did the best they possibly could to keep the increase as small as possible. There was a discussion about the money expected from the federal government and whether it would come in time to have any impact on the budget. And the budget was supposed to be adopted in May. So at the May meeting, Margaret, the CFO, was asked what would happen if the budget wasn't adopted in May. She said it was already delayed 1 month, and by not adopting it in May, the road crew would be at a standstill because the capital ordinance would not be able to be introduced. She said this budget is extremely tight and she's not sure what else can be cut. She didn't think waiting would give them more information on the federal money, and that there would be more damage to us to wait. She said the surplus was already being spent on chip sealing and buying equipment. So Rick, who is a tax lawyer, and besides Margaret, has worked on and knows the budget better than anyone else. He said deferring the budget is a mistake based on what Margaret said. Putting the road work on hold is a mistake, and nothing will change regarding the federal money in the next few months. He said he has no burning desire to raise taxes. So Mark then asked Margaret if the surplus can be used to flatten the budget. And Margaret explained that there's $700,000 in the surplus and $500,000 was already being used, which would bring it down to $200,000. Another $33,000 is taken out to fill in the hole. There'd be only $167,000 left. To which Chris says, "Doesn't seem like a terrible idea, to be perfectly frank with you." Really? So Margaret explained that the surplus was needed to balance the budget. So Chris wanted to put off adopting the budget, which Margaret already said was not a good idea. He wanted to see if the federal money would come in, which was already discussed, that it was most likely not going to happen. And if not, he wanted to use the surplus, which is already too low and is needed to balance the budget. Rick said the decision had to be made now, otherwise the budget cannot be adopted until July. So John said, my opinion is to use the surplus, and Chris said, I'm for surplus. Rick said, I think it's fiscally irresponsible, and I'm against using the surplus. At this point, Margaret said that she likes to have 25% of the budget, which is $700,000 in the surplus. Now, since $500,000 is already being used, what they want to do would bring it down to around $170,000. But whatever, John and Chris are okay with it, so who cares that Margaret and Rick think it's a bad idea? They're only the two people who know how the budget works. So, and Rick explained that anything can happen in a municipality, and he's not comfortable dipping into the surplus with the hope to plug it with revenue we don't even know we're going to get. And he said the chickens will come home to roost on this. So now Tara suggested cutting items in the capital budget. But she admitted she doesn't know the capital budget. So she doesn't know the capital budget, but she's willing to rate it to save $18 a year for each resident. So Mark then made the decision to change the budget, which meant dipping into the already low surplus, and adopting in June, which meant the road crew would be brought to a standstill. And John said, oh, that works for me. So I'm so glad the person who understands the budget the least is good with it. That's really comforting. And Chris made a motion to defer the vote to make it an amendment to the budget, and Rick was the only one who voted no. The budget was then adopted in June, using the capital to plug the hole, to save the $18 a year for the average resident. Then at the June meeting, John called Rick a sore loser, and he lost 4-1. The truth is, Rick didn't lose, the residents did. The budget isn't a game where you keep score. It's probably the most important thing the Township Committee does. East Amwell has an excellent CFO in Margaret, and Rick is one of the best tax lawyers in the country, and he's taken a lot of time over the years to understand and learn how the budget works. And you guys know better? You just ignore their advice? Why? Because you didn't want a tax increase when Chris was running for re-election. He even said to Rick at the May meeting, to avoid a tax increase next year, you're going to do it this year to screw me. Do you think that's fair? It looks to me like you're playing politics with the budget. I understand there's $18 a year of taxpayer money at stake, but the ramifications of what you did multiplies. It's multiples of that. The immediate ramification is now the chip sealing of Rainbow Hill and Losey roads won't be done this year. This will push back the road maintenance schedule, and the road crew might not be able to catch up. It's really scary that you go ahead and do these things without understanding the consequences. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public like to speak? Francis, you already had your turn. You can speak at the next session.
Sure.
Okay, seeing no others, motion to close to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Before moving on, and I wish Tim Willie would have stayed, there was no intention in sending out that postcard to mislead anybody. That postcard went out to the residents to let them know all the available options so that they could come in and let us know how they feel about each of the options. The planning board doesn't decide what we will or will not do in terms of marijuana in East Amwell Township. Tim seems to think they do, they don't. And we weren't looking to taint people's views in any way. We were just simply looking to have a public hearing where people can come in and talk about all aspects of what was approved in last November's election. So they can discuss with us whether they want growing, manufacturing, distribution, dispensaries, etc. So the notion that something nefarious or untoward was done is simply not true. In fact, it's just the opposite. We want to get input from the residents on all aspects of this. And we weren't looking to taint anybody's view by saying, well, the chair of our planning board thinks a dispensary is a great idea. let the residents decide if they think a dispensary is a great idea. This is a very important issue for the township. That's why we're having this special meeting, to let the residents weigh in. Okay, with that, consent agenda items, there are 3 of them listed here. Could I have a motion to approve the 3 items on the consent agenda?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed?
Mr.
Oh,
Castellano?
sorry,
Yes.
Krista.
Sorry, Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
Yes. Okay, now we go on to item 15 on the agenda, resolutions. I'm going to change the order a little bit just to take the easier stuff first. So let's start with C, the resolution to approve a social affairs permit for the Amwell Valley Fire Company for their Cornhole tournament. Could I have a motion to approve that resolution?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Frank, can I introduce these next 2 resolutions about the Ridge, or
I
should
think you
somebody
can
else?
introduce them, but you'll be obviously recusing from the vote.
Okay. Resolution D is to approve a social affairs permit for St. Peter's Foundation golf outing on September 13, 2021 at the Ridge at Backbrook, and I'll recuse myself from participating in this.
So do we have a motion to
Yeah.
approve that?
So moved.
Mark, you moved.
Yes.
Okay,
I'll second.
roll call.
You want a roll call?
Let's-
Oh, okay. Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
I'm recused. Same procedure for the next one, which is a resolution to approve the social affairs permit for the Dogmain Education Foundation, Domain Education Foundation golf outing on October 4th, 2021 at the Ridge.
Do we have a motion?
Motion approved.
Second.
Mr. Castellano?
Yes.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Wolf?
I'm recused. Okay, I'm going to go to B, which is the resolution to approve us to submit a grant application to NJDOT for what we call the Walisowitz Road Improvement Project, Section 1. Each year, we task our DPW supervisor and our engineer to prepare a grant application for a road that we feel is in great need of improvement and that we think we have a good chance of getting a state grant for. That's not to say that the road is the worst in the township, but there are some roads in the township that we just would never get a grant for. So we try to focus on the roads that we will get a grant for. So we want to apply for a grant to effectively do half of Walisowitz. Then the goal would be next year to apply for a grant for the other half of Walisowitz. If we get the grant this year for the first half, we would hold that in abeyance until next year with the hope of getting the grant for the second half and doing the entire road at once, which is more cost effective than doing the road in 2 halves and less disruptive on the people who live there or travel that road. In order to submit the grant application, we need a resolution of the Township Committee authorizing us to submit it. So could I have a motion to approve a resolution authorizing us to submit this grant application?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. The next is a,
You want a roll call on that? or-
no,
No.
just on the Ridge ones, I guess, to make it clear I'm
Oh, yeah,
recused.
yeah.
Okay, next, there is a resolution. I'm going to read the heading because I was not involved in the drafting of this resolution. It's a resolution of the mayor and the council of the Township of East Amwell, County of Hunterdon, State of New Jersey, establishing time limits for comment by public and elected officials during public meetings. Do I ask for a motion to introduce it? Or a motion to approve it?
Motion to approve it.
Could I have a motion to approve it?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Anyone opposed?
No, I haven't voted on it yet. I have questions and comments. If I were going to introduce something like this, I would certainly not do it in this form. I'd want to give the public adequate notice, the public the opportunity to review it, and the public to come in and comment on it. But we are where we are. As I said, I had no involvement with this resolution. But I would like to make 3 points regarding the resolution. First, I'd like to examine the wording of the resolution. For those who are watching who do not have the resolution with them, and as I said, this resolution was not published, it first seeks to impose a 5-minute limit on public comment. I have 2 questions regarding that. It says individual comments from the public will be limited to 5 minutes and must be directed to the governing body. Is that 5 minutes per person, or is that 5 minutes in the aggregate? In other words, do we just have a 5-minute open to the public, or does each member of the township who wants to speak, or even a non-resident who wants to speak, get 5 minutes?
It's 5 minutes per person.
And since we have 2 sessions, is it 5 minutes per session?
Correct.
Okay, but it doesn't say that. It then goes on to say, in the course of a regular meeting, comments made by the mayor and the members of the Township Committee shall likewise be limited to 5 minutes. What do we mean by a regular meeting?
This is a regular meeting.
Well, but what do we mean by a regular meeting?
A regular publicly noticed meeting. This is a meeting, it's a regular meeting, it's not a special meeting, it hasn't been called as a special meeting.
So if we have a meeting on marijuana, this rule doesn't apply because that's a
Correct.
special meeting. And when you say comments made by the mayor and members of the Township Committee, what do you mean by comments?
During comment periods for anything up for discussion under this resolution, you, the governing body, will be also bound to a 5-minute time period, just as the public.
Well, does that mean that if we're introducing a potential ordinance and whoever is bringing that ordinance forward wants to discuss it, they're limited to 5 minutes?
Unless there's a motion made to extend the time period in special circumstance, correct.
So what you're saying then is it's discretionary with the Township Committee based on the content as to whether they'll give the extension.
Based on the circumstance.
Well, what do you mean by the circumstance?
Every circumstance is different.
Right, but if you're making a decision to extend, you're either making it based on the fact the person's height, weight, gender,
You have a
or
10-minute limit now.
the comment. We don't have any limit on the comment period
For-
for Township Committee
No,
members.
just like hypothetically, you have a 10-minute limit on the first public session for the public. Anyone from the public is always free to request more time. And that's normal in most of these situations. The same would apply for the committee members.
And how would you decide to grant them more time?
That's a decision based on the individuals that would allow that, or would not.
There's nothing in here that sets a standard.
It's not.
So the decision is based on the content. If you believe that the matter they're discussing warrants more time, you would grant it.
You can't say that.
Then tell me what the decision to extend the time period is based on. If it's not based on content, Frank, what is
can't
it
be
based on?
content.
Bingo.
It has to be based upon.
And why
the
can't it be based on
circumstance.
content?
Some issues obviously necessitate, for instance, the marijuana issue. You're going to have a special meeting. There's going to be more debate on that issue. And you're
But this
not
doesn't
limited-
apply to the special meeting. This only
Correct.
applies to regular meetings. So let's
so
forget about the
you
marijuana.
said
Let's
if
focus
there-
on
you
what this
said if there's
applies
a- If
to.
there's an ordinance, and again, this is not my resolution. Okay, you've asked for this resolution.
Well, I didn't.
You didn't, but it's on the dais for a vote, and you're asking me my opinion as to what would happen or what could happen. The ordinance you can't limit speech based on content.
So then how does the committee decide whether to extend or not during a regular meeting? If it's not based on content, is it based on height,
It's
weight,
based upon the circumstances
skin
that
color,
may arise, the
whether they
subjectivity,
donated to your campaign? No, Frank.
Complexity of the issue.
That's content, Frank. The complexity of the issue is content.
Some issues need more time there may
Because
be a
of their
need to
content.
further debate. There may be a
Because
need
of
for
their
you-
content. The open to the public isn't debate. The 5-minute limit applies to the open to the public, but it can be extended by discretion of the Township Committee. The 5-minute limit to the Township Committee, it can be extended based on discretion of the Township Committee. I'm asking a simple question. What is the standard for extending?
There
Is
no
it
standard.
content or is it something else?
There is no standard.
And if
It's
it were based
discretion.
on, what is the problem with, you said it can't be based on content. Why?
Because that implicates First Amendment issues.
Bingo.
And so you cannot limit content of speech just because you don't like what's being said.
Right.
But if you want to impose a time limit on yourselves for whatever reasons you may have, that is your discretion.
What I'm saying to you, the question I'm asking is, what are the standards that the Township Committee will apply in deciding whether to extend? They are content-based. If you're telling me it is not a physical attribute of the speaker, it is content-based. Those are your two choices. It's either the speaker or the content. If it's not the speaker, it's the content. And allowing people more time or not allowing them more time based on the content of their speech is unconstitutional. If there's any doubt about that, there's a 2010 New Jersey Supreme Court case called Bessler versus Board of Education of West Windsor, Plainsboro Regional School District. I'm going to read a few passages from that case. The First Amendment to the United States Constitution prohibits the government from abridging freedom of speech or the right of the people to petition the government for a redress of grievances. The First Amendment gives people the right to express disagreement with government policy, whether on a national, state, or local level. Our free society must give breathing room for the uninhibited and robust discussion of public issues, even when it includes vehement, caustic, and sometimes unpleasantry, sharp attacks on government and public officials. One of the core purposes of the First Amendment is to protect speech on matters of public interest, including speech that the government finds offensive. Freedom of speech, therefore, protects not just the speech that we find agreeable, but the speech that we hate. Once a government entity, such as a school board, opens the floor for discussion of relevant matters of public interest and concern, it may not grant the use of the forum to people whose views it finds acceptable, but deny the use to those wishing to express less favored or more controversial views. In that case, 4 people got up to speak. The board allowed 3 of them to speak as long as they liked. The 4th one it cut off based on the content of the speaker's discussion. That was found to be a First Amendment violation. This allows an extension based on content. There is no other standard articulated here. If you're telling me it's not the physical attributes of the speaker, and that in of itself would raise constitutional issues, then it's the content of the speech. Is this 5-minute limit that's imposed on the Township Committee per topic, or 5 minutes in the aggregate on all topics of the evening?
Per topic.
Does it say that anywhere in here?
No.
Correct. What happens in a case where there's an interactive discussion? 2, 3, 4 Township Committee members are discussing a topic interactively. How does the 5-minute rule apply? I might talk for 2 minutes, then Mark talks for a minute, then Tara talks for a minute, then I talk for another 2 minutes, then John talks for 3 minutes, then I talk for 3 minutes. How does the 5-minute limit apply in an interactive discussion? And by the way, Frank, I'm looking at you because you're the only one who's attempting to answer my questions. I'm not picking on you. I recognize this is not the product. By the way, who wanted this? I didn't. Who asked for this resolution?
I did,
Okay.
along with the other 3 members up here on the committee.
So you all got together and decided you wanted
No,
this resolution.
We didn't all get together because that would be a violation.
Then how did you all ask?
We had discussions.
So just coincidentally, the 4 of you decided at the same time.
Listen, the
Coincidentally,
gist-
John, the 4 of you all
the gist-
decided at the same
The
time.
gist of this, Mr. Mayor, is that this is done in other places, right, Frank?
No, John, answer my question. How did the 4 of you, coincidentally, you all woke up one morning and called Frank independently of each other and said, draft
I
this
ran the ball on
ordinance?
this, Rick. I ran the ball on this, okay? You don't have
You
to look-
just
you don't
said
have to look any further
The
than
4 of
me.
you. I am looking
The
for it.
issue
You said the
here
4 of you.
is-
John,
here's the
answer my
issue.
question.
Here's the issue. Here's the issue, Rick. We're
The
trying
issue is you
we're
violated the
trying-
open public,
we
you
are-
violated the Open
No,
Public Meetings
no,
Act.
nobody did
This is
that.
why we need
We
to-
are trying to move the township business along. We have gotten into a situation of late where we get stymied because people go on tirades and people start becoming unprofessional and people start attacking other people. This was simply a measure for us to continue the township's business in an expeditious way. Okay, so yeah, it was my idea because I don't think township committee members should be able to speak longer than a member of the public. That's why it's 5 minutes for us, everybody up here, and 5 minutes for folks that are out in the audience. I think that's fair.
And why is the public limited to 5 minutes? We get so many people here that
Well,
or you're just too busy?
No,
Or you're too
no,
important
no.
to listen to public comment?
It varies in different places, Rick. There's nothing that says it has to be 10 or it has to be 5. It's just 5 is what was, is what we went with, but we thought 5 was reasonable for both sides.
Who's we? The 4 of you?
Well, I was the one who asked.
Who's we, John? You said the
Myself.
4 of you asked for
Is
this
this the
ordinance.
township attorney, Rick?
No,
Is this the township
answer
attorney?
my question, John. You said the 4 of you. The 4 of you coincidentally woke up one morning, called Frank, and said, Frank, did the 4 of them call you to draft this ordinance?
I only spoke to John, who asked me to draft a resolution dealing with the time limit issue. He asked me if it was permissible that we could limit members of the public to 5 minutes, which I indicated it was. You can limit the public to 2 minutes, 3 minutes, 5 minutes. Every municipality has a different time period. He asked me if it was possible to limit the time period that the elected officials could speak, to which I did some research, contacted the League of Municipalities, and even though it's not something that's commonly done, it is, in my opinion, permissible that the governing body can limit the time of speaking. The House of Representatives limits 1 hour per member of the House to speak on the floor. Similarly, if you all agree to limit yourselves to 5 minutes, you're setting the rules for how you conduct your meetings. That's within your purview. There's nothing, I don't believe there's any First Amendment implications with it. It's a meeting organizational decision, and again, it's the 5 of you, it's your decision.
Frank, this ordinance is as unconstitutional as hell.
Resolution.
This resolution is unconstitutional. It's content-based. It's flat out unconstitutional. It's unconstitutional for the residents. It's unconstitutional up here. And by the way, the House has unlimited, but they do have a procedure if they want to employ it to limit debate to 40 minutes, and the Senate is unlimited. Do they impose limits when they're having special hearings? Yes. And the Township Committee can't impose any time limit it wants. The Open Public Meetings Act refers to a reasonable limit. They gave an example in one of their COVID pronouncements of a 10-minute limit. But under your theory, you're telling me they could limit to 15 seconds per resident, because you're saying they can impose whatever limitation they want. I want to see a municipality impose a 15-second limitation per resident, and let's see if that holds up.
There are none.
Right. And the fact that other municipalities have imposed 2 or 3 minutes do not mean that those are valid under the Open Public Meetings Act or are
They've been
constitutional.
upheld.
Upheld in where?
They've been challenged.
2 or 3 minutes?
Under the Open Public Meetings Act,
Under the First Amendment?
you have it is routine, many municipalities have imposed less than 5 minutes per speaker.
Many municipalities have imposed limitations on going door to door solicited, and those are unconstitutional. The fact that they have them doesn't mean that they're constitutional. I've read some that are clearly unconstitutional. There are cases that are directly on point that say they're unconstitutional. Nobody has challenged them. But even setting aside the constitutionality, I ran under the premise that we were going to strive for an open and transparent government that was going to listen to the residents. Now you're saying, when France, not you, now you, John Mills, are saying, and the other 3 of you are saying, because unless you're telling me that John didn't say the truth, all 4 of you were involved with this, you're all saying, Francis, you have 5 minutes. Francis rarely stays within the 5 minutes. Does Francis make good points? Yeah. Always? No. But Francis makes good points. And whether her points are good points or not good points, an open and transparent government allows her to do that. A couple of years ago, we decided that we would limit the first open to the public session to 10 minutes. Not to stifle anybody, but we were getting complaints. Tim Matthews and I were getting complaints from residents who came in and wanted to speak on a topic and had to sit for 45 minutes while somebody talked ahead of them. So we said, okay, we'll impose a limit in the first session so that anyone who wants to speak doesn't have to sit and wait an hour and a half, 2 hours to speak. They would have their opportunity. And anyone who wanted more than 10 minutes could have that in the second public session. I could understand that if we were a governing body where 40 or 50 people came to each meeting wanting to speak, we may have to pose a 5-minute time limit across the board, because otherwise you could go on literally 10, 15 hours. That's not this township. We get a few people who come in to speak. Typically they want to speak about things that are very important to them. And now we're saying to them, you have 5 minutes. Oh, but wait a minute, if we like what you're saying, we'll give you more than 5 minutes. But if we don't think it's important, we won't. And you think that's constitutional? Not a chance. Not a chance. And, John, you don't like the tone of the meetings. Well, calling someone a sore loser, saying, quote unquote, you talk too much, quote unquote, you like to grandstand, quote unquote, you're egotistical. Those were the 4 comments you made to me at the last meeting when I said, I'd like to talk about why I voted no for the budget. I didn't even get beyond that in the discussion, and those were the 4 things you said to me. So you're really leading by example here, wanting decorum at the meetings. Good example. And then let me carry on with this ordinance. Speakers, including the mayor and members of the committee, shall treat each other with courtesy and respect. No poisonous rhetoric will be permitted. Language which insults or demeans any person or intimidates or threatens harm will not be tolerated. Well, what do the terms insult, demeans, or intimidates mean? Suppose a resident says, I believe that men over 6 feet are inherently untrustworthy and should not be allowed on our township committee. Is that insulting or demeaning? Should we ban the resident from making that statement? I think it probably is insulting and demeaning. Should we ban a resident from making that statement? No. If a resident thinks that somebody who's 6 feet 3 inches tall is inherently untrustworthy and shouldn't be on the township committee, they have the right to express that. We don't have the right to tell them no, and it's unconstitutional. You're allowed to curse. Cursing is protected under the First Amendment as long as it's not directed at somebody in a threatening way. But if somebody comes to this township committee and says, I think all politicians are a bunch of effing idiots, they have the constitutional right to do that. Is it insulting, demeaning? Yeah. Are they allowed to do it? Yeah. And I don't even know what poisonous rhetoric is. Webster's dictionary defines rhetoric as the art of speaking or writing effectively and as a skill in the effective use of speech. So what does that mean? Suppose at a township committee meeting, a member of the township committee discusses in an effective manner that his fellow township committee members use the municipal budget process to achieve a political objective to the detriment of the residents. Is that poisonous rhetoric? That's constitutionally protected speech. If you don't want to spend time working on township matters, if you don't want to spend time at one of these township committee meetings once a month, if you don't want to be criticized, stand down. Don't run for township committee, and if you're here on the dais, resign, because this isn't the place for you. Not only did you violate the Open Public Meetings Act, and you've effectively just admitted that, but this is a slap in the face to the residents. It's a slap in the face to everything that those who came before you worked for in terms of having an open and transparent government. And I wouldn't be surprised if this isn't challenged in court as being unconstitutional. So you all know where I stand on this. With that, I'll ask if there are any other comments. Hearing none, let's vote on it. Krista, do this on a roll call, please.
I'll make a different motion.
I'm sorry, no. We already have, it's 10 minutes for the first open forum, 5 minutes for the second. That's
In the beginning of the year, you passed Resolution 0321, which set forth the format of your meetings. In that resolution, under item 12, the open public meeting session is indicated to be 10 minutes. So by your resolution in the beginning of the year, you have technically imposed a 10-minute limit. As the mayor said, at the first open public meeting session, there is no time limit on the second open public meeting session of your meetings. That's the way it has been since the beginning of the year.
Well, it was, that each year we renew that.
Correct.
So that wasn't new this year. We put that in place
It's a
couple years
routine,
ago.
it's a routine organizational resolution, and this is the one for this year.
When I got on the township committee, my recollection is both sessions had a 15-minute limit. The 15-minute limit for both sessions was then eliminated because it wasn't being enforced. Some people were given more than 15 minutes, some people weren't. And the municipal lawyer warned against that as being a constitutional issue. So the 15-minute was eliminated, and it was left unlimited for both sessions. And then I explained a little earlier why we went to 10 and unlimited, to give everybody an opportunity to speak without having to sit and wait a long period of time or forcing people to rush in and try to be the first one to speak. So that was the rationale. There's never a situation where we're sitting here for hours and hours listening to people drone on about irrelevant topics. Does it happen once in a while where somebody comes in and takes 20 or 25 minutes? Yes. That's the nature of the beast.
So I just want to be on the record that I in no way, shape, or form would be in supportive of this in any means to stifle the public. That was not the intent of this at all when John introduced this and Frank drafted it. That's why actually I believe the statement number 4, or whatever one, granted, a committee member or a member of the public will be granted more time. That is the spirit of the committee, that if anyone is speaking, we would always grant them additional time. I don't care who you voted for. I don't care about your height or your gender or any of the other things. The spirit of the East Amwell Township Committee would be that we would grant people extra time. Francis, I would always give you more time if you asked to speak.
I'd speak anyway.
I know you would, or any other member of the public. And so I just, on the record.
If there are changes to this resolution that you all would like to consider, you can't table it.
I don't think that,
Just gonna suggest.
I
we
don't think
table
that we should hold ourselves, so Rick, to say that we would be doing this and that we shouldn't be up here if we can't stomach the conversation and we can't stomach the debate, that's not true at all. I've sat in all of these meetings since January, and I have stomached the conversations and the poisonous conversation that's happened, the attacks on members of the public and of the Township Committee, and I've stomached all of it, and I have no problem with it, and I will be here every month that I can be. But I don't think we're asking the public to limit their time. I don't think it's unreasonable to ask a Township Committee member to limit their time as well. Why are we allowed to stand up for 17 minutes last meeting and read something, but we would not allow Francis to do the same thing? So I believe that this attempt to write this and draft this resolution holds us to the same standards that we would hold our citizens to. That was my intent, and that's why I was supportive of Frank drafting this resolution.
But we hold our
Likewise.
citizens to unlimited on the second open to the public, so why do you have a problem with 17 minutes? Or did you have a problem with the content of my speech, the fact that I called you guys out on what you were doing with the budget? Because the public can speak for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. And if you're saying you'll always grant somebody an extension, then why do you want 5 minutes?
You said something
And if you're
about
upset with this
people-
ordinance in the 5 minutes, why didn't you speak out when I asked for comments?
What was the
You
last
don't
part?
want to hear what I have to say. You don't want to hear what the public has to
I don't want to hear you be
say.
nasty to people. You said that we're going to get complaints about people not wanting to come to the township if we limit them to 5 minutes. How about people not wanting to come to the township meeting because they don't want to be yelled at, they don't want to be bullied at? And if you want to know what the definition of poisonous rhetoric is, those of you might remember that I had my daughter sitting in this meeting a month ago. After that meeting, my daughter, my 7-year-old daughter, could not believe, I believe, Francis, you played back the recording
Yeah,
of that,
still got it.
I forget what meeting it was because I've tried to put it out of my memory. If my 7-year-old knows what the meaning of bullying and poisonous behavior and being unkind to people, if my 7-year-old knows that, then I'm pretty sure others that are reading this can understand that as well. So that's what the spirit of that is as well, Rick. So if you're concerned about people complaining about not wanting to come and speak at the Township Committee and why we have an audience of 4 right now, perhaps it's because they don't want to be yelled at, and they don't want to be critiqued, and they don't want to be bullied from the audience. So that could be it, some of it as well.
Critiquing is what politics is all about. You want people who only agree with you. You don't want people who critique you.
That's not true at all,
And
actually.
by the way, Tara, during your campaign, when I wrote all those letters, you loved those letters. You approved those letters. Those letters were no different than what I do up here. So why was that behavior okay when it was in support of your campaign, but when, on the other hand, I'm calling you out for what you did on the budget?
I'm not
And
talking
Francis's recording picked up the tail end of a discussion that started up here on the dais that's not in her recording. where I was being attacked. So she caught the tail end of it, me defending myself. I've never attacked a resident who came in here and expressed their opinion. Where I have had issues with residents is when they come in, for example, and say, don't chip Zion Road. There's nothing wrong with it. I walked the whole road, there's one crack in it. And we go out and walk the road and it's falling apart. There I will call a resident out. That was just flat out lying. And I call it as I see it. And that's how I do it. You seem to be okay with that. John seems to be okay when that suits him. And why don't you address the comments if you're so troubled by, this poisonous rhetoric? When the farmer threatened to send an armored bulldozer to the municipal building and other locations, the other location being my property, you didn't speak out. When Francis last week said, why don't you put something in his water? You didn't speak out and say that's poisonous rhetoric. When John Mills called me a sore loser, you talk too much, you like to grandstand, you're egotistical, after I said, I want to explain why I voted against the budget and didn't even say anything more, and he made those comments. Why is that not poisonous rhetoric? You got caught with your hand in the cookie jar, and now you're upset. Well, guess what? Get ready for more of it, because I didn't lie to the residents when I said we're going to run an open, transparent government, a government with integrity, a government that looks out for the best interest of the municipality. And that's what I'm going to continue to push for.
I don't disagree with any of that, Rick. I don't think it's a problem to limit us to 5 minutes in order to do that. So that's
I think
my
we
opinion.
ought to be able to say what we want to say within a 5-minute period of time. If we can't, then maybe we didn't prepare ourselves well enough. And I'm just going to make a comment about your letters, okay? There was nothing negative about any of those campaign letters. Nothing at all. You're talking about,
Go back and read the letters. Go back and read the letters.
That you're proud of the, like your intent was to be nasty and your intent was to be.
Those letters aren't nasty. Those letters
I
are
didn't
the
think so
same
either.
way that I deal with things up here, which is I call it as I see it.
We-
I ferret out the truth and I call it as I see it. It's what I do in those letters. It's what I do up here. You're fine when I'm doing it in your favor.
No, I didn't have any issues with the letters. I have issues when you are told.
When I call you out for what you did with the budget.
When you expose us
there's
to
4 of
legal
us that
liability
that
because you
didn't.
can't focus on what you're saying, Rick. We just had this decision come out last month. The judge, the appellate division confirmed that you had a conflict of interest because of the comments you made. Can you blame us for trying to protect the township? I have nothing against you personally. Frankly, I still have a degree of respect for you despite all the shit you've thrown at me, pardon my French. But what do you want us to do, man? What else are we supposed to do in this situation? Just continue to let you just go off the rails and expose the township to all this legal stuff?
All
it's
I
not fair
heard
to the
from you
residents, man.
throughout this process was support for how I handled that matter. Now all of a sudden, because I'm calling you out for what you did on the budget, for your discussion, I don't want a budget increase that I'm running in the year
I don't
I'm
want a
running.
budget increase whether I'm on the ballot, not on the ballot, or whatever.
That's
okay,
not what
Rick?
you said. You said, I do not want a budget increase in the year I'm running.
Yeah, in the context of a political strategy call, now that I recall it.
Oh, in the context of a political strategy call.
Yeah,
We
who was
will
on the
force
call,
here-
Rick? Talk
Right,
about
this-
breaking quorum, huh? Who was on that call?
You and me.
Who was the third person?
Nobody.
Can we restore?
That was a one-on-one call.
Oh, yeah.
One-on-one call.
Yep.
Mayor,
The adults enter the room,
I know.
please.
Can we restore
Yeah,
some
yeah.
order to our session, please?
What'd you say you want to do?
Oh, I said we should just table it till next month.
You should table it, period. It's a piece of garbage.
There's a motion to table the resolution.
Till next month.
What's the point of that, though? Let me
We
just-
can think about it for another month, then vote on it next month, either this one or.
The four of them can caucus behind closed doors for another month and come back
That's
with
not-
something
No,
else.
We don't
Shut
do
up.
that.
Proposing things. Stop.
I have his word, Mark. He said it.
We did not.
Yes, he did.
No,
Go
he
back
did
and
not.
watch the video, Mark.
Okay.
You got caught with your hand in the cookie jar again. I said last
No.
month this was only the tip of the iceberg, and I called it right. In fact, let me read exactly what I said
Nope.
last month.
No.
Let me read it. I am very concerned that this is only the tip of the icebergs in terms of the shenanigans by this Township Committee. You know the old saying that absolute power corrupts absolutely. I anticipate that my fellow Township Committee members will make great efforts to cancel me. I am confident they will fail miserably in that endeavor. I called it, Mark. This is only the tip of the iceberg with you guys. And hopefully the residents will see that, and hopefully there will be changes.
We have a
When the
motion to
residents
table.
read the appellate division
we're gonna
decision,
table.
dude.
I posted it on the
I
website.
Well, no, I
second
understand.
the table.
Yeah. All those in favor, do I ask for that? Do we do a resolution?
I'm in favor of junking this resolution.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? New business.
Give me a second. I'll get my papers together.
No, it's my turn.
Okay. Hang on here. Let me get to where we are.
Yeah, it's Chris's.
Okay. Right. New business. Clawson House roof and maintenance concerns.
Okay, so a couple parts to this. So the Clawson house roof, let's start there. We had gotten a grant, I'm just gonna give you guys a backstory. The county cleared us for a grant, I think in 2019, to replace the roof on Clawson house with real slate. And somewhere along the line last year, we decided we should try to revise that to get faux slate instead for a variety of reasons. It's cheaper, it lasts longer, less of a load on the building. So, of course, COVID had happened and everything kind of got messed up. But at the end of last year, I had begun the process of trying to get approval from both the county and the state to switch to the faux slate, right? County said yes. I sent all the paperwork over to the State Historic Preservation Office. It was like 80-something pages worth of documents. And the email I got back was like, as it was explained to me by the people on the Historic Preservation Committee, them saying no without saying no. And I tend to believe them because they're more involved in this kind of stuff than I am. So at this point, you know, we got a couple options. Either A, we get all the additional stuff that the state is asking for and hope that they approve the faux slate, or B, we just move forward with the real slate and get that done because the roof is in not the best of shape and could really use a replacement right now. So I wanted to pose it to you guys. What do you think the best way to go forward is? I'm kind of the mind that we just say, screw the faux slate, let's just go with the real stuff, get it done before, you know, the winter hits.
Well, I mean, is it time consuming to get the material together, the additional material required by the state?
Yeah, they were looking for like I forget what it's called, but like a computer generated mock-up comparing the real slate to the faux slate and the condition it is now. I wouldn't even know where to begin to get stuff like that. And at the same time, like, I estimated we probably end up spending a few $1,000s getting all that together, going through the professionals and et cetera. So, you know, it just didn't seem like the best course of action if they're going to say no anyway, because it seemed to me that from what they said, I'm trying to recall some prior conversations with them, they don't normally approve these kind of things. I mean, the county was totally fine with it, and granted, it's their money, so I think, you know, they should defer to the county, but that's not, you know, what they want to do. So, so yeah, now the other concern with going with the real slate is, of course, all the building materials are inflated right now, as I'm sure many people are probably aware. So we'd gotten a quote last year from Strober Roofing, and they said doing the real slate would have been $60,000 roughly. And I talked to them again about 2 months ago, and at that point, they said that price would probably be closer to $65 at this point in time, just because of the plywood being, you know, radically more expensive than it was. So the county's cool with us kind of taking our time with this. They understand the circumstances. And I reached out to our QPA, and from what he's aware of the situation as well, and he's just waiting for us to, you know, say pull the trigger on putting the documents together for the bid and everything. But we could kind of just wait. He could get everything together, and then we put the bid out when the price comes down on materials, which I think might be the best way to go. Maybe drag it out for a couple months just to see if anything happens. Not like we have a whole lot of time. We'd probably have to make a decision by October at the latest, maybe even next month. But yeah, so throw it out there. I'd love to know what you guys think of the situation, how we should proceed forward.
The problem with the real slate is it winds up being death by 1,000 cuts. I spent a fair amount of time looking into this when we built our house. We were going to use real slate on the roof. We wound up using the man-made. In terms of maintenance, the man-made is a much better product. The real slates, they break off. You're constantly replacing them. Even when Mark and I were out door knocking the last time we ran, there are a number of houses in East Amwell that have real slate, and when we went to those doors, every one that I looked at, I could see slates missing. That's the problem with real slate, and it's very difficult to get quality real slate these days. A lot of what you're getting is junk. The faux slate is wind rated to 130 miles an hour, so if Sandy hits, you don't have any issues with the roof. It's warranted for 50 years, maybe even more now. There are historical sites that have replaced their roofs with the faux slate, and they have received permission. Now, I don't know if they've received permission from the state, but for example, the Hunter and Land Trust building on the Circle has faux slate. There are some churches that did, historical churches that have done the faux slate. Maybe it's finding the right person at the state to talk to about this, but that's my thought on the real versus the faux slate. In terms of the building materials, lumber futures are down 49% as of about a week and a half ago. The expectation is that in the not too distant future, lumber will be back down to around 2018 prices. So hopefully a 4x8 sheet of half-inch CDX, instead of being $80, will be somewhere between $20 and $30, and that will make a big difference. So I agree, I would wait until the price of materials comes down. We're doing the same thing for some improvements here, but I don't think that's going to be too far in the distant future. So I think the real issue is, do you want to make a shot at take the shot at the faux slate, or do you want to go with the real slate? If you go with,
Will the roof survive
Well, that's the
another
other
winter?
concern, is like, it's on its last leg.
I know, I've been looking at that roof. I can't answer that. I can see it from the ground. I haven't brought binoculars. We'd have to talk to the roofer about that, whether it'll survive another winter. I don't know.
Well, like I said, it seemed from what the state was telling me that they really weren't gonna bite at the faux stuff.
If they're not going to bite at the faux stuff,
I
then we
can't
have
say
one
if it's
choice,
the
which
one.
is the real
Yeah,
slate.
Exactly.
From the paperwork that Chris showed me, they were asking for a lot of documentation and
I had looked at
proof,
that
and
paperwork.
it
They
just
wanted, you
seemed
needed,
outrageous.
an architect
Yeah.
can do what they need,
Uh-huh.
but you'd need an architect to,
Yeah, and we're talking additional
an
expenses.
architect could do that. And if you found an architect who would do it relatively inexpensively, that's one thing. But an architect can prepare those. We had that done when we built our house. They can prepare, they could show you what it will look like. They have that software. I would think for Clawson house, which is a simple gable roof, it doesn't have any dormers or anything. I would think that's an easy task for an architect. I would think it's, with today's software, it's pretty simple. I just don't know.
But that's probably not something covered under the grant, and that would be
Yeah, that's
something
the
that would
thing,
come
yeah.
out.
Right, but if it's a $100 charge or a $5,000 charge, you know, a $100 charge, you'd say, okay, a $5,000 charge, the answer is, we're not gonna spend $5,000. I don't think it's $5,000, because I think that's about what we spent to have our whole house done.
Yeah, we're still strapped as it is, so.
Yeah, well, that's exactly.
Right, but once we get the grant and the slate roof is on and the slates start coming off, we're gonna write the check to replace the slates. And so,
True,
to spend a few dollars now to save ourselves the aggravation of replacing the slates,
true.
that's the other thing to think
Yeah,
about.
but
It's,
again, there's no guarantee that the state's even gonna support.
right, the question is, do we wanna take a shot at it?
Yeah.
We probably got 3 months, right? Till November.
take.
You're not gonna be
Yeah.
able to put a roof on.
Yeah.
Yeah, past that, and then the winter's here.
Yeah.
So.
Well, a slate roof they can do, actually a slate roof they could do even in the winter. I mean, the faux slate roof we had put on our house was done in the middle of the winter. Literally, those guys were up there in the winter, because you don't need the shingles to seal. So as long as they're not at risk of ice or anything, those guys will get up there in the cold. So whether it's slate or faux slate, they'll do it in the winter if they can get up there. It's not like shingles where you won't do it in the winter because they won't seal right. I'm not saying we should do that, and I'm not saying we should go for the faux slate. I'm just throwing out there that if we go with the real slate, it may wind up being death by 1,000 cuts.
Anyone else? Opinions, thoughts, concerns, comments?
And what's the grant, how much is the grant for?
60,000.
60.
60, yeah. So, again, the roof, at least, best guesstimation by Strober would be 65, all said and done. So,
Currently.
currently, yeah, I mean, well, as of like a month and a half, 2 months ago. I mean, I don't know what the lumber price is at right now.
The lumber prices come down, we should be able to get it under 60.
Yeah.
But then the question is, when does our grant expire?
Well, they didn't give me a set date, but I asked him when it would expire, and what he told me was like, don't worry about it, we know we're aware of the situation. He didn't really give me a definitive.
Well, I know they pushed a lot of it off because
Yeah,
of COVID,
yeah,
so.
So it's kind of up in the air, but we got time. I mean, I don't think it would be a huge ask. I mean, I could see what they would think about putting it off till next year, but again, I don't know what the roof condition, whether or not that's gonna last through the winter, you know?
What we should do is ask Bill Burr if there's somebody he knows who could cheaply
All that stuff together.
do what we need for this application. It doesn't have to be in his shop, but could somebody do this for us, what would it cost?
Mm-hmm.
If the answer is a couple $100, it may be worth it. If the answer is a couple $1,000, then we probably should just throw in the towel and do the regular slate and call it a day.
Yeah, paperwork might be simpler than we think, it just looks enormous to us.
Yeah.
It wasn't, I looked at the paperwork, because I had those files for a while.
Seemed like
Jim
a fun
Davidson
email.
gave them to me, I believe. And it wasn't that complicated, but you did have to get professionals to do these mock-ups.
Yeah. Well, let me see if I can find the email. So I bring my laptop.
So do we wanna talk to our engineer and see if we can get somebody to do what we need relatively inexpensively and then revisit this?
That's an option.
Yeah, let me see what they were asking for, if I still have this. Come on.
Didn't they come back to you?
Yeah, no, they did. They got back to me, but they wanted more
It wasn't
stuff.
with the original specs.
Yeah.
The state came back with
They wanted more things.
more things.
Yeah. Where the heck is it? I know I see this. Did I present it to you, Kristen? Figures. Smell it?
I'm trying to see if I have it. I don't know that I ever scanned it in.
Come on.
So why don't we just get quotes? Like from Bill, and then we can reach out to another
Yeah, at the very
architect
least.
and
Get a
see if-
recommendation from Bill.
Yeah. And then go from there.
Sounds good.
You okay with that?
Yeah. Hold on. I gotta find this email.
And then you can send me, when you find that, you can send it and I can give it to Bill.
Yeah.
All right, why don't you pick up the rest of
Yeah, let's
Clawson
just keep
House?
moving with the meeting here.
What else do we have on
So the
Clawson
other
House?
thing, well, two other things. One is least offensive, I guess. Not offensive, but least involved. There were a couple, I'd gone over to the museum, I think, 2 weeks ago, and I met with Rich Catanacci, who's kind of in charge of the Historic Society now. And he was just highlighting a few issues to me that he's also told Jason about in the building. A few of them being the way the air conditioning vents are installed when you walk down
I
the basement.
found your email, by the
Yeah.
way, the one you were looking for.
Yeah.
I'll forward it to you.
Hitting them right in the face when you walk down the stairs, the air conditioning vents. So, he was kind of requesting if we could at some point get that moved so that they could actually, be able to move stuff in and out of there and make it a more usable space, because with that in the way, you're not going to be able to, invite people downstairs. It's not like it's a finished basement. So that was one thing he wanted to bring to everybody's attention.
Who wanted to bring this?
Rich Catanacci.
Moving those ducts is not going to be cheap, and you can't
Yeah.
use that basement for storage anyway. So that, I think, would be just wasting money.
Yeah. I'm just
As much as I love
yeah.
Rich, and I think he does a great job,
Yeah, like I said, I'm just reporting back what he's kind of highlighted for me. There was that. Then I was there with Frances too, actually, at one point, and she was pointing out that where the Bilco cellar doors are, there's a lot of holes. So there's stuff like creeping in and out of there, not just like insects and stuff, but we can get water damage. That's another thing that might need to get addressed. Well, probably does need to get addressed. And then what was the third thing? I know there was something else on here.
Water.
Yeah, the water. There's a little bit of mold that seems to be growing around like the sub pump area and one of the other corners, like when you walk down to your left immediately. So yeah, we might have to get somebody in there to kind of clean that out.
I talked to Jason about the basement.
Yeah.
The dehumidifier was hooked up wrong and wasn't working. He now hooked it up right, so the dehumidifier is now working. And there was no real mold issue down there, other than wood furniture that was stored down there had some mold on it. The Bilco doors, I could talk to him about the holes, but I've been down there a number of times. I haven't seen any animal waste, so we're not having critters getting in there, because if there were, we'd see their waste on the floor.
What I did see was a lot of spiders.
And, well, like,
No, that's-
in a stone
damp.
basement, what are you gonna do in a stone basement? And the water issue was, even after the 6 inches of rain we had, it was basically a trickle that ran into the sump pump. So there's not really much of a water issue, and you're never gonna have a perfectly dry basement because you have most of it's a stone foundation. But the basement is not a place that they should be using for storage for anything they care about. It's an old stone basement. It should be used for plastic. It shouldn't be used for fabric. It shouldn't be used for antique wood furniture.
Yeah. Jason said at one point when he went back, the dehumidifier wasn't even plugged in.
Oh, that's
So somebody's toying with it.
Plus the dehumidifier and the sump pump are on the same circuit, which isn't a good idea because they may blow the circuit during a time when the sump pump's running. So I asked Jason to look into trying to get running the dehumidifier on an extension cord to a different circuit. So they're both not running off the same circuit.
And they installed a leak detector on August 26th.
Right, I asked
Okay.
Jason to have there are now detectors the insurance companies are recommending that if you have a leak, for example, a toilet keeps running, it will shut off the water automatically before you have a flood. That house sits empty a lot. Kathy went there about a month ago, the toilet was running. She doesn't know how long the toilet was running for. That could have been a disaster if that toilet overflowed. So we're having a leak detector installed so that you might get a little damage, but it won't do $200,000 worth of damage. And the insurance companies recommend you do that now. I'm even looking into it for my house. So anything else on Clawson House?
Actually, yeah, I found that email I was referencing before. This is what they were asking for additionally. Specifically, they wanted an alternative analysis complete with product data and the financial details between faux slate and real slate, along with the warranty for each product. Second, a mock-up of the faux slate next to the real slate, on the roof of Clawson House, the CV of project architect, and proposed mitigation. And then there were a few other questions she had for us, like who is your historic architect, what is their professional opinion. Yeah, I thought this was going to be pretty cut and dry, but that is not the case. So
Well,
doesn't seem too bad.
Did we have an historic architect? We had an architect
Yeah,
on
we had-
Clawson House, but he wasn't historic, wasn't he?
He's from Flemington, Chris Pickell.
Pick up lots.
Right,
Yeah.
so we
So
have
we
an
have-
historic
we have his info,
architect.
yeah.
He may be able to do this for us.
Yeah. Yeah, I guess we got to see what he's gonna run us.
Right.
But
So why don't you reach out to him first?
I can't imagine he's that expensive, because Jim Davidson wouldn't have used them for Clawson House if he was.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. Well, I'll circle back with both. I hate using that term now. I'll check back with Mr. Vaquel. I've spoken to him before, and then Mr. Canning too about the bid where we are now. So okay. And then the third thing was the organ, which has been a hot button issue, I guess. Now I put up some pictures on the drive for this week. I don't know if anyone saw it of the organ itself, which is really just looks like a smaller piano. And the piping, not the piping, but like the mechanism they use to power it and everything. All they're asking for is to be allowed to cut a little 5-inch hole in the floor to run the vacuum tube for the organ. It's, I went in there myself. It didn't really seem like it was going to be that complicated of a thing. I even went into the basement to see where the thing would run to, And, you know, there's plenty of space, there's electricity, and Rich kind of told me that they would handle all that. They just kind of more or less just want our approval, yes or no on it, so. I mean, I'm a yes. I don't know if you guys have any other questions or concerns I could address or anything.
I was over there with Kathy.
Yeah.
They believe the organ has historical significance for East Amwell.
Who might have questioned?
There is already a hole that was drilled in the floor and plugged, so they may be able to take that out, go in there.
Mhm.
I have no objection to putting the 4 or 5 inch hole in the floor for the organ.
But being that there's holes, 2 holes there now,
Right.
I'll too late now. Yeah. What's the third one, right?
Well,
they
you may
can
be able
knock
to
the
go through an
plug out.
existing, yeah.
looks like a 2-inch plug, so you can knock that out and put the 5-inch right over here. Fine,
Are those my pictures?
yeah.
It might be a little blurry, sorry. Phone
No,
camera,
that's,
it's best.
that's clear.
Okay, so that's three yes, John? Tara?
Yeah.
Everyone's cool?
I'm okay with it.
All right, I'll let Rich know. Fantastic, thank you. And then what was the?
Van Loo's Bridge.
Okay, yeah, so that's it for Clawson House. Van Loo's, I got an email from Sean Van Dorn, or was it? No, it was Zach Rich, earlier last week. So the county is looking to essentially widen the bridge on Van Loo's right near Backbrook, where the two of those adjoin. And they had a public info session last Thursday, I believe, that I went to and tried to figure out what was going on with that project, because this was the first, at least I remember hearing about it. It may have in the past, it just escaped my recollection. But anyway, so yeah, they want to widen that to a 2-lane bridge instead of just the 1 lane that it is right now, and they're asking us for any comments we might have on the project. I forwarded the plans to Jason, and I think, Chris, I sent you the plans to send to them, right? Okay, so you guys can take a look at the plans for yourself. There's 3 proposals they're looking at right now. I'm not an engineer, so I can't tell you which one's the best or not, but
But they are saying the bridge is obsolete, right?
There's no
That's
redundancy in the
precise.
bridge. That's the
Right.
concern. The
Right.
bridge has no redundancy in it, so if something fails, that bridge
Yeah, it
goes.
goes down, right.
That's their
so
concern.
it's got to get done basically, and they want. I know a concern that Tara and I spoke of, because we both go to that area pretty often. Speeding coming down the hill onto the bridge. I mean, granted, so would we want to put a stop sign there? I think that might be a good thing for us to do. To maybe have Jason link up with them to figure out how all that works and who's going to pay for it and who's going to do what. I mean, if we can afford it, that would be great. The other thing, I forwarded all the info to Jason, and what he proposed was adding a, what was it? Of course, I closed out of the email. A sign that basically warns that there's a flood, that's a flood zone over there, right? Because
Oh,
if
yeah.
you guys remember,
Yeah.
well, the
This
other
past
week-
rain,
yeah,
flooded.
yeah. So you guys can take a look at the plans. I guess they have official public comment forms you can find on their site. I think if we want to do anything, it might be good to.
It's only
All
open
agree
for
on
2
something?
weeks also, because I emailed back and forth with the engineer, so they opened it last Friday. It's open for only 2 weeks. It's available on the website. They have a form that they want you to fill out to file your feedback that way. If you're having an issue with it, you can email him directly also.
Yeah.
I wasn't able to meet the meeting. Chris, was there good representation
Yeah, there were
from
a lot
the
of-
community?
lot of people, yeah,
That's good.
yeah.
That's good.
Francis was there.
Yep, as were the residents.
Yeah, a few people who lived
Yeah.
in that immediate
Yeah, I
area.
remember we've had people here at this meeting that live down at the bottom of Van Luce,
Yeah.
so, okay.
Yeah.
My concern, and I have this same concern about other bridges, and I managed to stop the county from replacing a bridge on Lindbergh. Those bridges tend to be natural traffic calming devices. And I actually looked at the plans pretty carefully. They're not just looking to replace that bridge. They're going to modify the grading, which I understand why, and they're going to widen the road for 1,000 feet up to that bridge. So that's not traffic calming. Now, I don't live over there, so I don't know what the traffic situation is like over there, but if there's a meaningful amount of traffic on that road, and that bridge is serving as a that bridge and the 1,000 feet coming up to it, if that's serving as traffic calming, you're going to lose that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, cars don't speed up and down Rynearson Road because that road is very narrow. And it's kind of chopped up. They come in, they put in the new bridge, they widen this road, they presumably will rechip, patch that, rechip seal that. Is that going to become a drag strip? And
Probably.
look, we're not gonna stop them from replacing the bridge. They're not gonna leave a bridge that has no redundancy up. The question is, do we need a project this extensive? Or can we do with a project that's significantly less extensive that leaves the country road a country road?
I agree with you, Rick, and that's why I've been emailing with this engineer, because I live right
Tom
off
Matthews?
I'll tell you the guy's name. It's whoever I found.
Tom Matthews
on
is the
website.
county engineer.
They
Oh,
have
you
a-
might be talking about the engineer for the company who's doing the
Yeah,
bridge.
but some outside firm working on
Eric
it.
Johnson.
Yeah, I don't know who that
That's the
is.
outside guy.
He's the assistant county engineer.
Oh, never mind.
If, I don't know him, but all I can say is, if we don't want this to happen, we're gonna have to move on this sooner rather than later, because once they start going out for bid, and it may even be too late now, I don't know, but if we don't want this, now's the time to speak up.
They said in October they want to put everything out there.
No, they had the markers out there for
Yeah.
a year.
I mean, getting all the, putting the bids out and everything.
I don't know whether this will make a difference or not on that road. I don't
Yeah.
live on that road. I'm not over there that much. I don't know. I'll defer to you guys. You live there. But if this is something that's going to be a problem, now's the time to address it.
I
Because
walk on
speeding
that
is
road,
ridiculous here in this township now.
and it's bad on that
Yeah,
road.
that's a
I
long
walk-
downhill.
I walk on that road every single day with my dog and with my kids, and
Well, it's
people
used as a
already
cut-through.
speed.
Then
It
we need
is.
to go to the
It's a cut through from
county.
Wartsville to Old York.
And not the engineers. This has to go to Zach Rich. I mean, Zach Rich was the road liaison. I don't know if he still is.
I would think so, 'cause he's the one who.
He
Didn't fill me in on the
was,
project,
he
but
was
I don't
about a year ago,
100%.
because he talked to me about,
Yeah.
not this bridge, but some bridges elsewhere in East Amwell.
Didn't you just say he forwarded that stuff to you?
Yeah, yeah.
He
So he's
did.
probably the bridge
I would think
liaison.
so, yeah.
And it concerns me that they want to make it 2 lanes, because right now it's 1 lane, and I think that detracts people from using it, because they know that it's a pain in the ass to get over. So I think,
Plus, big trucks can't use it.
yes.
Now, big
they're-
trucks will be able to, the new one, the
they're-
big trucks.
They're trying, I know that the ambulance and the, what is it, the fire? One of the trucks can't get over that, so
Fire
that's a
Fire
concern.
can't come over.
Well,
So
that's, yeah.
But that you could fix. I mean, they're gonna have to put a new bridge in. We're not gonna
Yeah.
stop them from
No.
putting a
that
new
was my
bridge in.
point.
We
If they
don't
could
want them
allow
to.
that, but not a 52-foot trailer truck that can get up and down van
Right,
lengths.
we don't need a massive bridge. In fact, you could have a bridge with the same footprint, just with the redundancy, so you don't have to worry about collapsing, and some modifications so the fire truck can get through. But I'm just telling you, these bridges, I know because I run these roads, these bridges are traffic calming devices in a
I
big
agree
way.
with you.
And they're not just replacing this bridge. If you look at these drawings carefully, they're widening the road for
Yep.
1,000 feet.
Yep.
That's a fifth of a mile. Look, we can do something officially as a township committee. I think we need to get more involved in this process. I'm not sure what that means, but if we want to stop this, now is the time to do it. The longer we wait, the harder it's
Yeah.
going to be to stop it. The more momentum it gets, the harder it's going to be.
Mhm.
So what do we want to do?
So why don't, I'll email Zach,
Okay.
and I'll include this engineer, just because I've had conversations with him, and
Okay.
say that we discussed this in a township committee meeting this evening,
Yeah.
and that we'd like to talk further about it, or we have,
I would tell them the township committee has
Concerns.
serious concerns. And we need to have a conversation, whatever that means. I mean, put it in your own words, but I would use serious concerns.
yeah, I'll do that. Are you guys all right with that?
Yeah,
I'm fine.
it's gonna be affecting you.
No, I know.
I walk the street every day. It's already, people are speeding,
Yeah, it's already
but
sketchy.
the bridge it has to slow people down. If not, the bottom of your car is gonna bottom out.
Yeah.
And you can't fit 2 cars on that. Someone has tried to get on that bridge with me in a car. It's not successful. So it's already a heavy, because you're downhill the entire time. So, and then there's the whole confusion of when you're coming from Backbrook, who goes first, and
Yeah, it's a.
people that live there are calm and say,
Yeah.
you go first, but people that are zipping around trying to,
At the very least, I think it would be good to have stop signs there. I never understood why that was never a 3-way. I mean, I guess when you're coming over the bridge, it's kind of a pain in the butt.
It's an
but-
exercise of politeness
Yeah.
now on who gets to go first. That's
So it's
how
kind of
I
a blind
treat
turn
it.
too when you're coming down
From-
Backbrook.
from
It
Backbrook
is.
onto
It
it.
is.
Yeah.
It is. Okay,
So-
all right, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Okay.
They have to get us comfortable, this isn't gonna make a bad situation worse.
And I would assume that the residents down there have similar opinion, because I remember, I
They
forget their
do.
last
A
name.
couple of
It's,
them talked to
Mill-
me about
Mills.
Bev Inn's house, right at the
Yeah,
other
they
side
were,
of the
they were at the
bridge.
meeting.
Right, I figured
Yeah.
that, it's right on the
Yeah.
side of the bridge.
There's another.
They were gonna put together some feedback too, and they were gonna, more from an environmental engineering perspective, because that's what they do professionally, they were gonna
Mhm.
take a look at that whenever they
There
got
was another
put together.
couple on there that reached out to me a while back with
It's
some
probably the
concern.
Millers, the Mills, they live on the left side when you,
That's ringing a bell,
Yeah.
but I have to
some,
look
I
and
know
see.
them. I talked to all of them.
Okay, so,
I have something to add under new business, our discussion to increase the smoke certification fees. Thanks,
yeah.
Frank. If we need to vote on that, so,
Well, you wanted a resolution, right?
yeah, so, next month we'll have to, introduce
Oh, that's every
the
month.
ordinance
Okay.
to redo the fee,
Okay.
that's fine, Krista.
okay?
That's good. Yeah.
Can I get a motion
To do what?
to increase the smoke certification fee?
Okay,
We're
could
doing
I-
it by ordinance.
I know, but I need a,
okay, could I have a motion to approve increasing the smoke detector inspection fee from the existing $45 to $50?
So moved.
Second.
Do we also, we don't need a resolution for the mileage, because our,
no, that's
That's
already,
already in our
it's
book,
already
right?
in a handbook.
okay, so we're good.
Now, is he looking for not backdated?
No,
Oh,
no.
all right.
Nope.
I'm looking for it right now, I don't see it.
I could send you his V card.
I don't know why I don't have
Pause.
it. Okay, sorry, keep going.
Now we have to open to the public.
Okay,
Motion?
could I have a motion to open to the public?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Public? Francis?
Start timer.
There's no
There's no
time.
time?
Yeah, well, one good thing is that Chris is very good about telling me when my 10 minutes are up in the first one, which never occurred, and there's nothing in your ordinance aside from that saying you could only talk once. So I'm taking that opportunity now.
Francis Gavigan?
Francis Gavigan, 123 Wurtsville Road, still a munchkin, still a dwarf, still all sorts of things. 30 seconds. As far as Clawson House, I'll get some of the aside stuff out of the way. I was in that basement. I am fortunate or unfortunate enough to be able to walk under that duct. And I have a photograph here that I can show you of the standing water that came from the Bilco door to this far from the stairs and extended over to it. And the water, I didn't get, the light was out, so you couldn't get, there's water stains where the water comes down through that stairs by the Bilco door. Being a munchkin, I can stand there and I can see daylight through those Bilco doors. I didn't go looking for floating rat feces. I could see daylight, I could see water, and there was water there that was pooling. I wouldn't necessarily suggest that you put an extension cord in an area where water pools. There's also a wet spot that's around in the, under the addition that I have a photograph of underneath the plumbing for the bathroom and all of that. The foundation in the basement and stuff wasn't properly sealed. There's probably some grading improvements, but the fact is there been junk down there that shouldn't have been? Yes. Is there water down there? Yes. Is there mold or mildew, whatever, that gets on in there? Yes. I'm an asthmatic. I am very allergic to toxic mold and spores. I had my spinal cord abscess thanks to those in a condo. When I have been sitting in Clawson House working on the webpage and doing different things, I have gotten asthmatic attacks from being in there because it flows up the stairs and into the kitchen where I was sitting. You cannot open a window because they're sealed and painted shut, plus the windows that Jim picked out, They don't even have the little thing where you could lift it. I and others, to try to get some air in there, were forced to open the doors at the end and hope you got enough. I finally wheezed off into the sunset. I've raised it to Jason that there's water in the basement. Yeah, there's water in the basement. Duh. There's also a lot of stuff that's in there. There are things that could be fixed and cleared out and stored better, yes. But I haven't gone down there and unplugged anything. But the fact that there was a humidifier behind all of these ancient iron radiators that are stored in the corner, that's a separate issue. If you want to go down there and take a look, I'll show you I can go underneath the duct. Woohoo! But there is a health and safety issue that should be addressed, if nothing else, to try to be able to open a window so you can breathe. That's as a citizen, not just as a member of the Historical Society, trying to spend time there. And there were a number of people there at the time who were watching me wheeze and whack and all of that other stuff. The slate roof, just go and pull the trigger and get the slate. We haven't had major failures. Do slate roofs have a problem? Yes. If they're not done right, yes. Are you going to be able to get a $1.99 report from either an architect or an engineer so that you can try to sell the state SHPO on real slate versus fake slate? No, you're going to throw money down a well and you're going to lose the season. We've already got some problems, and that's the end of that issue. As far as the bridge over there on Van Luz Road, I attended. There were people there. Chris was there, the Ettons, and the neighbors. There are a number of issues. What was discussed was three-way stops, concerns about traffic calming, and raising the road over there on Backbrook where a school bus is, so people come flying down, they'll go by and they'll hit the school bus. There are issues. They were willing to come to the township and have a meeting and introduce the plan and what we can do about it. And I would ask that, especially since time is sensitive, you want to be sensitive to the residents and Tara, because you're a resident and elected. They were perfectly willing to come in here and have a meeting and make a presentation, and then the public could come in here and have their say about what can we do about the traffic calming, whether it was speed bumps, and there's a whole issue with those, or things that could be done to keep people from causing, the problems that people do when they get on the road. It was specifically raised that we did not want Van Luz to become the next Lindbergh Road, which is the cutoff and over to New Brunswick for all the people flying down from Pennsylvania. It's already a cut through and it's already a problem. Don't want to make it worse, but you can make it better. They seemed reasonable. Tom Matthews and also the lady and the gentleman they're willing to come and to share. I asked specifically about would there be the stone masonry that they've agreed in the past to do with all of our bridges? And Tom Matthews said yes, he likes how it looks. So we don't just have an issue with that. I think it would be good to ask them to come here in September, either before or as a separate night, to where people could come and there'd be the issues. You could look at the plans, you can touch just whatever and try to come to an agreement. They are optimistic about wanting to put in the plans and put in the papers to go to DEP and all of that and hopefully get it done next year. We both know that that has as much chance as a snowball in hell because we've dealt with DEP and I've been involved with what's done to redo bridges. This bridge is somewhat infamous because it made a New York Times list over 10 years ago that the EADA, I think, used to mention, about being one of the worst bridges in the state. It is functionally obsolete. SHPO has signed off that it's not you know, it's not historic or things like that. There are things that can be done. There are things that can be approved, and it never hurts to talk to them, and they were willing to talk to the public. Going all the way up to the hen house on Route 12 for a meeting, and the email blast that went out was somewhat cryptic, and so I had, you know, trouble getting to the information and then went anyway. I think it would be a service to the township, to the residents, and to demonstrate how engaged you are with the county and Zach Rich or whomever else to get what will work for us. Getting stop signs, three-way stops, is a township thing. You have to ask for it. Getting them here can get things on the record and can get things ironed out, because they don't want to have people going to and from the, I know they're no longer freeholders, but we still know them and love them as freeloaders. They want to play nice in the sandbox. I think we want to play nice in the sandbox and get what's best for the residents. The Entons, who live right there at it, they were very engaged, very involved. They did not appear to me to be ready to break out the tiki torches and go fight against this or whatever. They want to come up to where it's a win-win-win for everybody. And I'd like to commend Chris for showing up and taking his time to meet with the residents and also to discuss the technicalities with Tom Matthews and the engineers. That all said, I'm somewhat known for being a little bit of a blunt speaker. 9 minutes, 25 seconds. And I've been getting texts all night during the half hour that you were having about whatever this resolution is. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an elected official. But I do know, the little bit that I do, is that in the New Jersey constitutional form of government that we have, that if there is a lot of power that's in the place of the mayor, and he can go on, and in this case I think it was pretty close to a half hour, and that the only thing that the other four could do would be to get up, break quorum, and walk out, which I imagine many people have been tempted to do. It is abusive, Mr. Mayor. The fact that after your wife brought up for the second time her rehashed version of litigating the May budget and the June budget, and I have the whole thing and the whole thing's on tape, and I raised my hand, I was dismissed because, oh, I'd already spoken. Krista would have told me if I'd used my 10 minutes. That was a violation of my Oprah civil rights. But I knew what was going to go on, and I sat here and went through it. And I'll give you some of the quotes that came to me, that one of which was, "Go, Tara, go." Yup. Another one was, "Horseshit. He's an ass." Infer whom you want as to who is the ass. You know, and then just go on and on. People weren't so much concerned about the time limit. Oh, here's an obscenity. Unfucking real. This is exactly why they need this for the ordinance. You know, the only option the four of you have is to leave, and you're too polite and too classy, and you're not trying to make political hay for Chris's opponent this year or yours next year. We've got to get through another 5 months where we have to endure the mayor doing his verbal attacks and soliloquies and yada, yada, yada. It's a reasonable resolution that can be tweaked a little bit. Make it 10 minutes. You know, maybe everybody can have like a little timer. I don't know. I'm still going with mine. But the political crap that is going on and has been going on ever since people told you no to a tax increase because they listened to the public who asked for it, is disgusting. It's also, how do I put this? I really don't want to spend hundreds of hours editing down or measuring the time spoken and said by John Mills. Time on the budget clock was this. On Mark Castellano's was that. Chris Sobieski. Mayor Wolf. Oh my God. My comments that you referred to from last month were, taken out of context. When I said, I don't dislike you, but I think you have an issue. I think you have some challenges, as they say, in polite society, of being appropriate and professional and decent to others. And my thing, put something in the water, was more like, I think you might need to consider seeing a professional to see if maybe something to mood level could be appropriate. People have benefited from some things. I see a lot of people biting their tongues. I have got recordings because I turn the thing on and it stays here. The bit that I played last month was just what happened after Krista turned off the tape. Tape wasn't turned off months ago, back when I asked about, well, what about this roof and all of that, and I got why are you asking this? Do you think I'm stupid? Do you think Mark's stupid? We know what it is. I asked simply about the weight and the bearing capacity of our roof. Why would you ask that? Why would you ask that? I didn't know it, but I got home and geez, it's in there. We really don't need to have above the scenes, behind the scenes, flagellation, adulation, working one person against the other. If you don't want someone to be a candidate, and it's only one in this year, then you come out and you side with the ones that are running against them. But don't be a, what is that, rhino, I think is the term, Republican in name only. Some of the crap coming from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party gets me in my gorge. I have quit the Republican Party on a matter of principle of not wanting to be affiliated with it. I voted in the primary, in the Republican primary, and I haven't gotten there to change back. But if this kind of crap is what the American public has to deal with from isolated individuals with a lot of power and a legal mind and wanting to try to bait people into things, I think it's going to be an interesting 2021, 22, and 24. Now, I have one question for you, Mr. Whitsley, because it did come up, and I wasn't going to say anything about it. But you referenced the fact that the appeal against the Ridges case was lost. So is that done now? Are there any further appeals to the Supreme Court? Or is that restriction settled case law now that limits the ability of the mayor to get involved in things? The fact that he was in the lobby when I got here suggests that it is now what is binding on us all. It's a simple yes or no.
That's correct, yes.
Okay. Now, my understanding is that the Ridge is entitled to recover from the township the legal costs, having gone to the courts and then gone to the appeals and all that. Have they sent a bill yet?
I can't answer that, Francis.
Okay, you can't answer that.
That's an ongoing.
That's an ongoing matter. So that is likely to be, I don't know what we paid or our insurance carrier paid, but we now have a new insurance carrier. I wonder if that's correlated. But there are tens of thousands of dollars in legal fees that the taxpayers are likely to be bearing because of the actions as described and litigated in that lawsuit. Are we taxpayers? Is the fiscal responsibility to make us whole gonna come from you, Mayor Wolf? Are you gonna pay the legal bill when it comes due with the Ridge, or are you going to use the power of your position to indemnify? There's not much people can do when somebody has a whole lot of power and they have few restraints either imposed by themselves or by others. The only thing you can do is vote with your feet, and we can't vote with our ballot until 2022. This year, the person that is up for re-election is Chris. He is one person. He has showed up at meetings. He has shown up at Clawson House. He has shown up over there at the county hen house about the bridge. He also led the charge against the $18. $18 isn't a lot of money to you, but you're not on a fixed income. I'm not on a fixed income. I've got the ability to make money to where I could pay it. But people like, what was the man named, Chris up on Manners Road, who had written you the letter about marijuana and addiction. I know he's on a fixed income and that every penny and every dollar counts for him and his family. I also know that the month after the budget thing was, you canceled resolutions of money that was set to one side that kind of made up the deficit and made it whole in the operating or, the capital expenditure or whatever. I don't know if that made it up or not, but from the little hints of humor in the corners of Mark's mouth, I suggest that that might be true, and I would appreciate an answer of, I think it was like $35,000 that was going to trigger shortage in the budget that was going to trigger the $18 increase that could not be offset by the federal funds that came a couple months later. 19 minutes and 56 seconds. Sorry about that, but I think I've covered a fair amount of ground. If, one thing about it was, here's one more comment. We are at home saying the fucking golf course lawsuit, 4 exclamation points. You asshole. That's not my words, but it's a member of your, your constituents. And it goes on and on and on. I think we all want it to be over. September, October, November, December. So there are 4 more meetings where it's unfettered. And this resolution hopefully would be moot in January, and maybe you could revisit it. But if the only options that you have for civility, professionalism, and decency are to come up with, John, you're walking the talk of what you said when you made your statement a few months ago, and you spoke with Mr. Whitsley. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to read between the lines to say, we certainly need it for another 4 months. We certainly could have used it tonight because this would have been a short night's meeting. And instead, it's 9:45. He's on the clock. You're dealing with family and kids and everything else and jobs. All I have to do is go home and shovel the barn. A much preferable form of shit. At least it makes the flowers grow and the blackberries and everything else. There are more things, but you know what? Ask the county down here to come and schedule a meeting, and they can do that in September, and they were more than willing to do it. They want to work with you. Let's do something positive, and let's do something fast, and to the people who may or may not be watching if they're still up this late, if 4 out of 5 get up and walk out, they at least now will know why people are forced to break a quorum. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Kathy?
Kathy Wolf, 21 right next to I just want to say I got my own text during this meeting, and they were all saying how great Rick is. And Francis, you know that if Rick had brought that resolution to the Township Committee, you would have been all over it. And you would have been all over the violation of the Open Public Meetings Act, and you know you would.
Oh, psychic too.
Yeah.
No, I'm gonna maintain order here, Francis. You've spoken.
I just
We're
love
not
you,
going back
Francis.
and forth.
And you just spoke for well over 20 minutes, and if they had their way, you would have been cut off a long time ago. And Rick is the one who wants to keep giving you that right to speak for as long as you want. So I don't know what your problem is. Thank you.
Anyone else from the public? Motion to close?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I'm just gonna add one thing. You know, I have a big issue with hypocrisy, and I would advise anybody who watched this tonight to go back to the Township Committee meetings prior to this year and listen to how Francis described the work I was doing. Francis was very complimentary. So what happened? Well, Francis came up for reappointment on the planning board this year, and she wasn't reappointed, and all of a sudden now Rick Wolf became the worst mayor in the country, became a bully. And it's interesting how Francis brings up the Ridge. Throughout the whole Ridge process, Francis is feeding me all kinds of information about how bad the Ridge is, how bad the Ridge is. Go Rick, go Rick, go Rick. Now, I never used anything she fed to me because there was no way I could support it. But Francis was behind this 100%. Francis was very complimentary, and I invite people, please go back and look at the meetings prior to this year and listen to Francis's description. So that's my response to Francis. With that, where did I put it? My cheat sheet. Oh, here it is, sorry. Okay, we are up to approving the bills of the evening.
I reviewed them. I don't know if anyone else did. Everything looked in order from my perspective, but anyone else jump in?
Okay, could I have a motion to approve the bills of the evening?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments? All in favor?
Mr. Castellano?
Oh,
Yes.
sorry.
Mr. Mills?
Yes.
Ms. Ramsey?
Yes.
Mr. Sobieski?
Yes.
And Mr. Roth?
Yes. Approval of the administrative reports, we just do that by a voice vote?
Yeah.
Could I have a motion to approve the administrative reports?
So moved.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Just one comment. I was made aware of some traffic concerns, some issues on John Ringo's Road. I know there was a bad accident by the Western Rail, but I did immediately reach out to Delaware Township, and I asked them to make that stretch of 179 a priority, actually 579 there, a priority on John Ringo's Road. So I'm gonna look to get some numbers from Chief Kane, but I just, you know, wanted folks to be aware of the fact that I know that's a hot spot right now.
Did we vote?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Oh, yeah. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone.